Sensationally silver, because you are.
Welcome, everyone, to Sensationally Silver, A State of Mind, conversations with extraordinary, ordinary persons of age, people who are going to bring you information, inspiration, and validation. Join us. Welcome, everybody, to today's podcast of Sensationally Silver, A State of Mind, conversations with extraordinary, ordinary persons of age. And my extraordinary, probably not so ordinary person today is Caroline Thompson. She has some really interesting things to talk about. But first, I want to welcome you, Caroline.
Thank you.
I want to ask you my first question. It's always the first question. Caroline, how old are you?
I am a happy 68-year-old.
Oh, I like that. Happy 68. When you were much younger, did you ever think you'd be happy at 68?
Well, no, I was a heavy smoker and I gave up smoking in my 30s and I thought, oh, when I'm old, I'll take it up again at 70. I'm like, no, I won't be doing that.
We get a different perspective as time goes by. Yeah, it becomes a lot more important to take care of ourselves. So, how old, Caroline, do you feel?
You ask that question a lot also. And, my answer is that it depends on what I'm doing, how I feel.
Ah,
When I'm walking to the bathroom in the middle of the night, I feel about 110. When I'm visiting my horses, I feel 12. When
mm,
I'm writing, I feel about 16. When I'm painting, I feel about, I don't know, 35. It really depends on the activity.
that is so interesting. The various ages that those activities bring out in you, that mindset that goes with the horses or with the painting or writing. Wow. So it sounds like when you're writing, you feel like a grown up. Yeah.
Well, I feel about 16, which is when I became obsessed with being a writer. So, um, I mean, I was a screenwriter for many years, and when I write with my audience in mind. So if I'm writing, for kids, I feel like I write as if I were a kid. If I'm writing for adults, I write as if I were an adult. So I'm a different age. I'm summoning different desires and experiences and wishes and hopes, depending on who I'm writing for. And I summon them from within me because I've been around a while.
And they're all in there, right? So I must have gotten it mixed up because I thought I heard that you felt 35 when you were writing. What was the 35-year-old part?
Oh, that's when I painted. That's when I'm painting because I didn't take up painting actually until my 50s, or
Ah,
maybe, yeah, my late 50s. But I feel sort of uh, you know, joyful and present and young-ish.
well, let's start with some of the things you've written because you've created some iconic stories for people that haven't diminished in their popularity over time. Do you want to talk about that a bit?
Oh, I'm totally blessed. And what I'd like to talk about today with you in relation to that is the concept of legacy. Um, Legacy is, I feel completely blessed to already have a legacy that I can gift the world. I wrote Edward Scissorhands, which um and The Nightmare Before Christmas, which are both considered sort of, you know, iconic and great and wonderful classics. And I wrote other movies too, including I wrote and directed a version of Black Beauty, who had its 30th release date on July 29th, apparently, I was told. Um, which made me feel a bit kind of, oh my gosh, how time flies. Um, so yeah, I've been really blessed. I've had several movies produced, Edward Scissorhands, Nightmare Before Christmas, Secret Garden, Incredible Journey, Addams Family, Black Beauty, several more after that. But I was blessed and lucky, and I am probably the happiest screenwriter you'll ever meet because I only worked on projects I wanted to work on. I never had children on purpose so that I didn't have to take work to make a living, to put food on their table. And of course, I got horses who eat more than children, but that's a different story.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I know that horse thing. They take a lot from us, but they give a lot to us too. So, do you have a favorite of those films that you've helped create?
Edward Scissorhands was my first movie, so of course it's my favorite, and it was also the most blessed in its execution. It's a very sort of unusual story, and everybody who was working on it was working on the same movie, which might not sound unusual, but believe me, it's really rare for everybody to understand the tone, the purpose, the feelings, and every single person working on that movie was, they got it. We were all doing the same thing, which was has never happened again. So I was really spoiled from the outset, but I had that experience and I will treasure it forever.
I can imagine that if you're all on the same page and understanding the project, it's not just a piece of work that you've got to get through and then at the end of the day, that must be rather magical.
It was totally magical. Thank you for understanding.
Yeah, yeah. It for some reason it makes me think of when you look up in the sky and you see a flock of birds and they're all flying together like they have one brain. And I've heard that's true for people who do like the Iditarod and they drive they I forget mush the team of dogs, and when they all pull together as one, it's what they live for. It's this magical moment. So,
Yeah, it's the same thing with carriage horses, actually.
uh-huh, that's
And
right.
like a team of four, they get the energy, their energy flows just as you said, like a flock of birds. That's
Yeah.
absolutely.
And people who don't understand, they don't appreciate when you're seeing all those hooves picking up in sync, even though they're doing different distances because they're at different ends of the harness. It's really amazing that they've coordinated like that. Yeah, yeah. I guess that happens in figure skating and a few other things for us humans, but it does seem quite magical to wherever it happens.
I think that's in a way the future goal for us humans is that we can respect each other's energy and be in community. It's been an interesting journey for me to understand, and it's been taught to me by horses. So when I was writing Edward Scissorhands, I was living in the horse area in Burbank, California, which the TV show Mr. Ed was based on. So my horse was literally, I outside my office, and I would stop work at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and get on him and gallop him through the hills in Griffith Park. And that was my therapy. And I, we understood each other really well. We never had a miscommunication, but I didn't really, I didn't learn from him as much as I've learned from my current little herd of 3 elderly mares who, when we walk in the way you're describing. I mean, they have taught me, as I say, I've gone from obligation to communication to communion with this group of girls, because it's like, and I think, okay, this is what we humans need. We need, I do this beautiful thing on Thursday mornings, not this morning. There's a group of craft women here in Carpinteria, California, where you and I both live, and we make dresses out of pillowcases for underprivileged girls all over the world. And it's like, it's a service, but it's also, we're like a flock of birds. We work, in such great synchronicity, and it's the first human community I've ever really felt like, oh, I get it. I get it.
Wow, what a lovely story. Huh, I have to kind of sit with that for a minute. It's like a sewing circle. It is a sewing circle, an old-fashioned sewing circle,
That's
which was a
exactly right.
great place for women to come together and talk and share and relax from all their other duties in the world. Yeah.
Yep,
So
you get it.
not everybody cares, but I do. Tell me the names of those 3 mares.
Oh, so I have a 28-year-old quarter horse named Whitney, who is the daughter of the horse that played Black Beauty in my film. I have a 27-year-old Shetland Welsh cross who was born in my backyard in Burbank. Somebody had asked me to look after the mare who was her mother for a couple of weeks. I didn't know the mare was pregnant, and they never came back. And suddenly there was a pony on the ground, and she gave me a baby that one's called Eve, and she gave me Lily, who's 14.
Okay, so that's your herd, and you're part of that herd, it sounds like. Yes?
Well, on a good day, some days they're like, "Who are you?" And other days they're like, "Come on, let's rock and roll." So,
Yeah, keeps you on your toes.
yeah.
All right, so a couple more questions about being a person of age. What is the most challenging thing for you being a person of age?
Can I tell you a secret?
Yes, but you're telling lots of people, hopefully.
My husband is 75 years old.
And
And he doesn't do self-care the way a woman does, so
okay,
that's a challenge.
that's challenging.
Mhm.
So,
I love him dearly, and we have a wonderful life. It's just, to be with somebody for 30 years and kind of go like, "Oh my God, we're old."
mm, yeah,
Yeah.
I know I sort of rediscover that too sometimes. I'm going along and then suddenly it's, oh yeah, I can't do that anymore. I used to go to the bookstore. You probably know the used bookstore here in Carpinteria, and I'd squat down to the lower shelves. I can't do that anymore. And I used to be very smug about the fact that I could hop up and down that way. Those knees don't work now. So my bottom's up in the air while I'm looking at the bottom shelf. And that makes me feel old, I have to admit. Yeah. Oh,
Well, I
well.
guess now that you mention it, something that makes me feel old is I have pretty persistent sciatica. So I can't throw my leg over a horse anymore without my whole right side going numb.
Mm.
So let's not talk about Steve and his age. Let's talk about me and my sciatica.
Well, I know about you that you have a very compelling project that you're doing that involves endangered animals. Let's talk about that.
Well, so when I retired from screenwriting, which I have more or less, though I occasionally dip back into it, I followed a lifelong dream of becoming an oil painter. And I found a wonderful teacher in Santa Barbara called Nancy Tolliver. And we did a project together, which is we painted the eyes of 50 endangered animals. Let me show you one. This is a bonobo, who is related to chimps, who are sort of the peaceful chimp community where they, live happily in groups and they don't create war with other chimps. But they are victims of poaching and deforestation, and they are endangered. So we painted 50 paintings like this. We have a online website that called I Am Art, EYE, get it? Am.art. And you can visit it and see every single painting and see illustrations that were made of the animals by a wonderful illustrator so we could do sort of kids stuff. And we're doing setting up modules for homeschooling to teach kids about these animals. And it's just my heart project. My first word was aminal. So everything I do, really, I mean, Edward Scissorhands was about when Johnny Depp asked me, he said, I don't really understand this. What's this movie about? I said, who am I? And I said, oh, you're based on my dog. This dog was so present and so alive and so there, but she couldn't talk. So she, had this outsider quality, right? And that's who I based that character on. He was like, I get
Oh,
it.
that's
But so everything is an animal.
say that again. What?
Everything for me is really about animals.
Okay. Okay. So they're not just a metaphor, they're also teachers and examples and in their own way, definitely communicators. Yeah.
Beautifully put.
They're,
Yes.
they're as different as we are. I used to show dogs a long, long time ago, and I had a male and a female brother and sister from the same litter. They were as different as they could possibly be. Their temperaments were so different. Their likes and dislikes were so different. And these were fairly closely bred dogs. And it's kind of amazing how in a specific breed they can all look pretty much alike and have certain traits that are true to that breed and yet be so diverse in terms of their personalities, just as we are, in one family. If you've got 5 children, you've got 5 very different people. I've rarely heard it said when people have several children, oh, he's just like his brother. They're not. They always talk about the differences because they are different. We are different. And yet, as you're saying, we have to learn to live as a team, one great big team, because this world is getting so small and so very overcrowded. So,
Well, it's really interesting. The gift that I was just talking to my husband about this morning is that because he doesn't understand horses. So I'm constantly trying to explain like what is so beautiful about their teaching. And I realized this morning that we get stuck in our emotions. You were a therapist, you know how stuck people get. And a horse, they'll be eating grass and go, oh, yeah, yum, yum, yum. And, whenever I say to them, I'm so depressed, in my head, I hear, feel the sun on your back. La, la, la. And then suddenly they go, oh, a tiger. Oh my God. And they run, 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 run. And then they go, oh, we're free. We're safe again. And then they just start to eat again. They let emotions run through them. And they don't, as I think our greatest difficulty as a human is we think when we've landed on something that gives us happiness, that we get to hold on to it forever and ever. We don't understand that everything is in flux. So when we're sad, we also think, oh my God, I'm going to be sad forever. We don't sort of give ourselves, and this is what I hope to do in this last part of my life, is to really start letting stuff go and let it go through me and 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 learn how to not hang on to to sadnesses and not feel like, oh, happiness is the constant goal to cling to, because it will also just disappear.
yeah, again, in my words to you, beautifully put, because animals don't dwell in the past or the future. They don't think that way. Their minds do not work that way. But we become so involved in what we want and what we don't want, anticipating or fearing, hoping that this happens and that doesn't. We don't stay in the present. And when we're in the presence of an animal, and boy, do horses epitomize this because they're big. Even when they're little, they're big. And we stand next to them and they've got those 4 feet on the ground and they're right there, right now. And if they think there's a tiger over there, then they're right there, right now. And then when it's over, it's over. And as you said, back to eating, always in the moment, always in the moment. And to be able to capture that with the kind of brain we have that is always talking about something to us that isn't in the room, so to speak, it's very refreshing and very relaxing, grounding, so grounding.
For my models.
Yeah, yeah. Have you
Mhm.
done paintings of horses? Do you do that as well?
I have not terribly successfully, but I want to show you a painting of, I just lost one of my dogs, and this is a painting I made of him many years ago. His name was Tucci. He was a Chihuahua mix. He died at 17. Um, and I miss him terribly in so many ways. I paint I've painted dogs more than horses, but I will get back to painting horses because I draw them. I take charcoal to the farm where they live and draw them while they're in the field, and enjoy that.
I I don't know if there's a connection between that dog's enormous winsome eyes and the fact that you ended up concentrating on animals' eyes. But wow, the eyes of that little fellow. Oh my goodness.
Well, painting eyes is, I have another friend who loves to paint dogs, and we talk all the time about painting eyes. Painting eyes is really difficult, but so rewarding, when you get there.
Because you're looking into this soul, really. I guess some
Yeah,
people don't
indeed.
think animals have souls. I don't want to get into the debate about that, but I have my own
Well, they're
opinion.
wrong. Wait a minute, they're dead wrong. Animals have huge souls.
Well, when we're very connected to them, we know that, I think. There's just no question. It's just another package that spirit can be in. And yeah, yeah. Have your early wishes for your life come true?
Well, it's really interesting. when I was born in 1956 and grew up in the 60s with my mother, who was very brilliant, but really her life was taking care of us and my dad. And so I saw, and this is not meant to judge her, but I saw learning to cook as enslavement, gardening as enslavement. I saw it all as enslavement. And so I promised myself that that's not how I was going to be as an adult. At the same time, I was actually really blessed to be born a female, because the males I grew up with, I grew up in DC, in a world of, congressmen's kids and ambassadors' kids and, country club kids, and the expectations on the boys of that culture really froze them. I don't know a single one who actually blossomed. And sadly, because they were brilliant, many of them. And many of them were successful, but I'm talking about, really following dreams and making the world theirs. So I was really blessed not to have a gigantic pressure on me. So, my parents were looking at my brother. They weren't really looking at me to go like, okay, this, eventually my dad panicked because I was going to be freelance. And he was like, no, you can't do that. You have to, have a job so you can be sure to, secure. But, the pressure was much, much less. So it was kind of those two things. One, I didn't want to be, enslaved. But I was really blessed not to have the giant pressure that was on the males that grew up around me.
That's interesting. I was speaking to someone yesterday about her husband's family's expectations of him, the husband, as a young man, and how huge they were. And I've never thought of that word enslavement as applying to that, but it certainly pinches you, doesn't it, into a slot that may not have much to do with your own yearnings and your own innate talents and innate just gifts. It sounds to me like those young men you were around, they were all expected to end up at the White House. And
That's right.
yeah, how likely is that? So everything else is going to be a disappointment, no matter how glorious. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I think they put them, they were slotted, and they didn't know how to push the boundaries, and if I were born a male in that culture, I don't know if I would have either, but I'm totally blessed to have, because people are also always asking me like, what was it like to be a woman in Hollywood in the 90s? And because there were only like three of us, I think. And luckily I didn't think about it at the time, or I might have frozen. I just was, following my path and my nose and my dreams, and totally lucky to do that.
getting the job done and not thinking too much about the threats around you or whatever, the perceived threats. Who knows? I'm sure some of them are very, very real.
Well, I always
Um,
called myself a plow horse.
Say that again,
I always called myself a plow horse because
because
I put one foot in front of the other and didn't really let the frantic thoughts of the culture of Hollywood. People would say to me like, how can you stop work at 4 o'clock and ride your horse for 2 hours? And I was like, why would I work at all if I couldn't ride my horse for 2 hours?
yeah,
The life work balance, that was another gift I had. I was like, you know, I didn't understand not uh, having the release time as well as the focus time.
you had some innate talent for that because having been self-employed, and my mother, who had a civil service job, and that was what you were supposed to get, the job that paid the salary, and really, in so many ways, she was paid for suffering. She hated every job she ever had. She hated them, but there was somewhat of a secure income with them. So I was self-employed, and it took me really decades to learn how to balance work with time where I wasn't working and be able to relax in that time when I wasn't working and trust that there would be more work, there would be more clients. I could relax, I could exhale, I could lie on the beach if I wanted to, and not feel like I was going to starve to death if I wasn't working every single minute, or at least thinking about working every minute. That was something I had to learn. So I admire your ability to figure that out and follow that intuitively.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for saying that. I mean, again, I think the animals taught me that. I mean, after Tucci died, this is the first time in 40 years I haven't had a dog, and dogs always, we're like, come on, we got to go run. Yours must have done that too.
Yeah, we got to go have fun. That's right. So, regrets. This doesn't sound like a full of regrets kind of life, but do you have some regrets?
Well, what's interesting is that I think the luckiest moment I had was at the time my greatest regret, which was that my first husband left me at the age of 28. I was just getting successful, and I think he was very threatened by that. Um, and I thought my life was over. And ironically and happily, my life launched from there because I had sudden freedom from uh his judgment. Basically, he's gone now, so I nobody, he can't call me up and go like, how dare you say that. But he was a very he had been he was also a writer, and he had been my writing professor at college, so it's almost like he raised me, I think, in his view. And so my separation from that was very challenging for him, so he separated from me, and it completely was the luckiest thing that ever happened to me, to be honest.
I think that's so often true. We can't seem to help bringing our judgment to situations when they're uncomfortable and thinking, this is awful, this is bad. I wish this hadn't happened. And I know from my own life, some of those disappointments have been the biggest gifts they've opened doors, just like you were saying, to something that was so perfect for me that I didn't recognize it. I didn't understand it until it was in motion, and sometimes not even until retrospect, looking back and going, oh my goodness, what a gift that was. Yeah, I've learned by this time in life to be thankful for all of it, because it's all part of the picture. And yeah, and some of the things that I thought were going to make me the happiest, not really, not really. Those dreams that have come true, it's like, oh, often I've had to do something to step away from them because it didn't work out. So,
Yeah, I
um,
was, again, my husband and I were just talking this morning because he was in the movie business as well. He was a very successful producer. He produced Princess Bride and Boys in the Hood and School of Rock and lots of brilliant films. And we were saying, did you ever meet a happy famous actor? Did you ever meet, other than Spielberg, a happy famous director? Did you, the culture thinks those are the happiest people we have. I never met. Oh, my friend Alan Cumming is a happy man, but by and large, they are lost and miserable and constantly in need of approval. And it's just so ironic that these people that we put on the pedestal are, just are holding on for by their fingertips. That's my experience of them.
it's it's debunking a great myth that having this celebrity and having the success that anybody would count success is not a key to happiness. There's something else that has to be going on in order to love your life. And it really is dangerous if it's based on what other people think of you. That's at least my take.
I think you're right. And as the horses say, just feel the sun on your back.
Easy for them to say, they have those big long backs. Ours,
But get
they don't.
it,
Yeah,
get it as simple as possible is the idea, I
I
think.
know, I know. But without getting too woo-woo, the way their chakras are lined up is aligned with the sun. Ours
That's
aren't. I mean, they
absolutely
go down the
accurate.
back,
You're right.
Yeah,
I never thought of that.
yeah.
Oh, well, thank
Animals,
you. Thank you.
they tend to be doing a whole different thing with that energy that comes into us.
Maybe we need to get back on all fours.
At least for part of the time. I have a friend who hangs upside down every day, and she says it really helps her change her perspective. So, anything that you would change about your life, Caroline?
Boy. You know, I was born into a difficult family. And I'm sure part of that difficult family has helped me become who I am. But my first memory, to be honest, was I don't know if I was two and a half or three, but my first memory is lying in bed, and I had a very low to the floor bed so I could put my hands on the floor. Apparently, I needed grounding. And I said, "Who are these people?" So and they were not, um, my parents were young when they had kids, and they were just not ready, and the warmth, I don't know, I wonder what it would have been like to have been born and grown up in a warm family, in a lovely situation. So I don't know, would I have changed it? If I had changed that, I would have changed this. So I don't know, but again, letting go of the trauma that I experienced, which was significant, and the hurt I experienced, which was significant, is another goal for this part of my life, because it's just sort of like, wow, I gotta,
Yeah, free it, let it go.
yeah.
That's another thing animals don't do. They don't define themselves by their story, what happened back then. They keep being present to the present. I just adopted a couple of kittens, and oh my gosh, these were little feral cats. I got them from the shelter a little bit down south. They are the happiest, friendliest. They seem to think I hung the moon. I mean, they just want to be with me all the time, which I'm not used to with cats. And if they were living their little short life that wasn't so great, that isn't who they'd be. So they're really remarkable to watch them, just destroying my house, among other things, but so full of life and so present to every little wad of newspaper that they can bat around and all that. We should all be that good at being happy with so little.
I totally agree with you, Robin. I totally agree.
Well, I'm going to ask you my final question, and that is, Caroline, what would you say to anyone, everyone who's listening, who's watching today? Do you have a message for all of us?
Well, I think we've covered it, actually. I mean, we're all in transition, and every day is different and hopefully welcomed. I regret the transactional quality of our culture, which is to say, you give me and I'll give you, you give me, I'll give you, instead of, you know, not making it about trading, but making it about giving. Um, and uh, and that's how community works. I mean, I really feel like, and I don't want to get too woo woo either, but I really feel like female energy is coming to life in our world, and that's what female energy is. It's not transactional energy. It's not about power. It's not about dominance. It's about community. And so, that would be my wish for the world. And then the other thing I like to say is I love Leonard Cohen's phrase about the cracks are where the light comes in, because, we don't treasure aging in our culture, but I do know that age has really given me the opportunity to learn and learn and learn.
I love that. And I want to say for myself that I am getting better with every day at treasuring myself. And that's one of the lessons that aging is teaching me, that I can appreciate all the things that still work. I can appreciate everything I can appreciate when I look around at the world. The lessons of aging are immense and beautiful, and they're really only available to those of us who have some miles on us. Yeah. Caroline, thank you so much for being my guest today. It's been fascinating talking with you. And thank you to all of you who have been watching and listening. Come join us next time on Sensationally Silver, a State of Mind.
Thank you.
Sensationally Silver, A State of Mind, is sponsored by Sensationally Silver, a complete hair care product line created especially for people with hair like ours, naturally gray and white hair. Sensationally Silver products can be found exclusively at sensationallysilver.com.
Sensationally silver, because you are.